Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month deck techs. This is deck number 22 and it's titled Demi-Gods. And if you haven't seen this before, what we're doing is building a Magic the Gathering commander deck using two non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June. So, for today, our partner commanders are two Demi-Gods in their own right, that is Calliphy, Beloved of the Sea, and Renata, Called to the Hunt. So starting off with Calliphy, this is 1 blue for a star 3 legendary enchantment creature demigod. Calliphy's power is equal to your devotion to blue. Creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target this permanent cost 1 more to cast. Then her partner Renata is 2 green for a star 3 legendary enchantment creature demigod. Her power is equal to your devotion to green, and each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Now, for this deck, you may be able to tell, we obviously want a ton of devotion to blue, while also having devotion to green. So let's jump into some of our themes for today and kind of pick apart how we're going to make that work. The first and probably most obvious way we're going to make that work is with hybrid mana. Being able to play something like Manifestation Sage, which is 4 hybrid green-blue, gives us the ability to add both 4 green devotion and 4 blue devotion at the same time, which is very powerful and a very quick way for us to turn our commanders into threats. Other than that though, Manifestation Sage still pretty good on its own because it is that 4 mana for a 2/2 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, then you can put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Being able to make another creature when it enters is already very good, especially if we have Renata in play. Everything's entering with an additional +1/+1 counter anyway. All of our stuff is hard to target if we have Calliphy in play. It really just works with everything we've got going on. Next up for our themes, we have Ramp. Ramp is a difficult one to come by because you may notice, if you look at the deck list, every single card in this deck is a Simic card. It means it is both green and blue. There's none that's just one or the other, except for our 2 commanders. So finding Ramp that fit that theme was very difficult, but also very important to the deck. So Urban Evolution is 3 green-blue for a sorcery, you draw 3 cards and may play an additional land this turn. So a lot of our ramp package in this deck isn't searching our library for lands and putting them into play, it's drawing additional cards and then putting additional lands into play. And if we are able to do that, then we can play some of our bigger threats and make sure that we always have the mana we need to activate whatever part of our game plan we're on at the time. Finally, we get to our third theme of the deck, which is going to be counters. And that is a little bit of a double negative, double positive, I don't know. Counters both in the sense that we want to control the board state, and counters in the sense that we want to put +1/+1 counters on our creatures. Repulsive Mutation does both of those things. It is X green-blue for an instant, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, then counter up to 1 target spell unless its controller pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So this is a great way to make sure that we're putting counters on our own things and protecting whatever's happening at the table, because we can counter our opponent's effects and protect our own creatures. So a little bit of a double entendre. I don't know exactly what word is I'm looking for. If you let me know down in the comments. But anyway, that is the end of our themes for today. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some key cards. And these are cards that really synergize with the deck and are win conditions or value engines, but more often than not are kind of like the MVPs of the deck. So starting off, we have Prime Speaker Zagana, which is 2 green, blue for a 1/1 legendary creature merfolk wizard. Prime Speaker Zagana enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. Then, when Prime Speaker Zagana enters, draw cards equal to its power. Now, obviously, this can be a pretty bad card. It could be 6 mana to draw 1 card and play a 1/1 creature, so obviously we're going to try to avoid that entirely. But if we have other large creatures, which is very likely in this deck, then Prime Speaker Zagana can draw a ton of cards, get a ton of +1/+1 counters, and trigger a bunch of our other synergies while refilling our hand, which is exactly what Simic wants to be doing. Moving on to our second key card, this one is Oversimplify. Now, anyone who's played mono green, mono blue, or even Simic in general knows that board wipes are pretty hard to come by. So Oversimplify is actually one of the best ones for what we are trying to do in our deck. It is 3 green-blue for a sorcery, exile all creatures, not just destroy, not just bounce, exile all creatures. Then, each player creates a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token and puts a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the total power of creatures they controlled that were exiled this way. Now, because we are playing a Simic deck, we will almost assuredly have a larger board than our opponents, so when we oversimplify those boards and turn them into single creatures with combined power and toughness, our fractal should almost always be bigger than anything else our opponents are doing, and put us in a position where we're kind of just going to start to steamroll over our opponents. And absolute worst case scenario, maybe we make the smallest fractal, but we take away all of the abilities of our opponent's creatures. It doesn't have trample, we can block, so there's a lot that Oversimplify can do, and I think it's a very good addition to the deck. Last but not least, we get to our final key card, which is going to be Coma Cosmos Serpent. We talked a little bit earlier about how important ramp is in this deck. This is one of the best things that we can be ramping into. Coma is 3 green, blue for a 6/6 legendary creature serpent. This spell can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. Then you can sacrifice another serpent and choose one. You can either tap target permanent and its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, or Coma gains indestructible until the end of turn. Coma, like I said, is one of the best ramp targets in the deck because it just kind of wins games on its own. There's not a lot of ways for our opponents to deal with it. We can tap down blockers, we can prevent abilities from being activated, and we can give Coma indestructible. So unless someone has, like an Oversimplify, to exile Coma, there's not much they can do to remove it. And if that's the case, we can very easily just ride Coma to victory, because we'll be making a 3/3 Serpent every single upkeep, not just our upkeep, every player's upkeep. Anyway though, those are the end of our key cards, so the next thing I want to do is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck. And these are cards that synergize really well with each other, and in a lot of cases are kind of value engines, but are more likely going to be just fun cards I want to highlight. So the first pair of cards are going to be Shielding Plaques and Simic Guildmage. Shielding Plaques is 2 and a hybrid green-blue for an enchantment aura. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. An enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Notably, this does not give the creature hexproof, because if you can put it onto another creature that your opponents control, for example, they couldn't target their own creature, so it's a little bit different and weird in that way. But it does work well with Simic Guildmage, which is 2 hybrid green-blue. For a 2/2 elf wizard, you can pay 1 and a green and move a +1/+1 counter from target creature onto another target creature with the same controller. That's awesome, we love that ability already, but the reason it's in here with Shielding Plaques is for its second ability, which is 1 and a blue, attach target aura attached to a permanent to another permanent with the same controller. this essentially allows us for 2 mana at instant speed to reattach shielding plaques to any of our creatures. And if we are able to do that, then whenever someone goes to remove one of our creatures, we can swap over shielding plaques and eventually kind of just fizzle everything our opponents are doing, because they're not going to be able to target our things, they're not going to be able to kill our things. As long as we have 2 mana open, it's like we have a counterspell sitting on board that specifically protects our creatures. Now, admittedly, this is a little bit of a weird interaction, so I wanted to highlight it because I think it's kind of cool, and I'm hoping that it works the way that it does, and I didn't just explain something that doesn't work, but I'm pretty confident that that's how that goes. Moving on, though, to our second cool interaction. This one is between Experiment Kraj and Scuttlegator. Experiment Kraj is 2 green-green, blue-blue for a 4/6 legendary creature ooze mutant. Experiment Kraj has all activated abilities of each other creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you can tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Scuttlegator is 4 and 2 hybrid green-blue for a 6/6 crab turtle crocodile. It has Defender, and you can pay 6 and 2 hybrid green-blue to adapt 3 and put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And as long as Scuttlegator has a +1/+1 counter on it, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. What that means for us is we can actually put a counter on it with Experiment Kraj rather than activating its adapt ability, put it up to a 7/7, and then it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. The nice thing about also putting a counter on Scuttlegator is that Experiment Kraj will then gain the activated ability to adapt. So at any point, as long as Kraj has no counters on it, we could pay that 8 mana to adapt 3, and then Kraj becomes a massive 7/9 and can start beating face as well. So I think that alone, these 2 cards are still very good, and they're great at adding devotion for our commanders, but combined, they actually do some very unique things. That, though, brings us to the final part of our deck tech, which is, of course, the price of the deck. And today, the deck came in at $38.50, with the most expensive card being Fable of Wolf and Owl at $5.66. Fable of Wolf and Owl is 3 and then 3 hybrid green-blue for an enchantment that says whenever you play a green spell, you may put a 2/2 green wolf creature token into play. Whenever you play a blue spell, you may put a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying into play. As I mentioned earlier, every single card in our deck, except for our commanders, is both green and blue, so every time that we would cast a spell with Fable of Wolf and Owl in play, we're going to put a wolf and a bird token into play at the same time, meaning we can very quickly overwhelm our opponents with value. So I do think that even though this is our most expensive card in the deck, it definitely earns its spot in the deck. Anyway though, that brings us to the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you so much to everybody for watching. Thank you to everyone who has liked the video and subscribed to the channel. We are getting close to the end of our daily Pride Month decks, and I'm a little bit sad that it's going to be going away, but I'm very happy that we've made it this far. So, a quick shout out to all of our patrons and channel members, a thank you, and if you would like to join that group of amazing people, you can find us over on Patreon, patreon.com/dungeonlearnersguide, and right here on YouTube as a channel member. So once again, thank you to everybody for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.